Hello and welcome back to Pokemon Colosseum. At the end of the last episode, we made kind of an interesting discovery coming back to the Under. So Bit in the Under actually let us know that none other than Mirror B has been spotted in the Under taking the UFO elevator thingy downward. And luckily we just picked up a D-Disc back at the Snag'em hideout, so we were able to go down and find out there's actually a hidden Colosseum down here. So yes, lo and behold, this is actually yet again another Colosseum, and we are going to be challenging this place as well. In fact, it's actually kind of required here in the post-game story. So in this episode, that is what we're going to be doing, and I have to tell you, this is kind of a long process. I have done this before a few different times. Obviously, I've played through the main game and the post-game. And this part is not that fun, and it's very important to once again make sure that your Pokemon are raised up quite a bit, because we have yet again another series of battles. You kind of have to see that coming with this being another Colosseum, obviously. So we have 4 trainers in a row that we will have to battle several times, not just once, not just twice, but many times. Hello, welcome to the Deep Colosseum. Would you like to enter a knockout challenge? Sure. You'll enter? Wonderful. Will you be entering with the Pokemon in your party now? Yes. So after receiving that email from Bit, he essentially lets us know that, yeah, Mirror B has traveled down here. So obviously that means that he is somewhere located within this Colosseum challenge. So what better way to find out his whereabouts than to challenge these trainers that are blocking the way to finding him. So once again, it is time to speed things up a little bit. So yeah, nothing interesting here again. I mean, we've seen plenty of these battles. I've done so many Colosseums, so many mount battle challenges that there really isn't a need to show these battles at normal speed. I'm just going to be talking once again through the battles as they are sped up. So what's interesting about the Deep Colosseum, as this place is actually referred to as, is you not only have to battle through these 4 challenges once, you have to actually do it 5 freaking times. So believe it or not, yes, we will find Mirror B at the end of this first challenge. We are now in the semifinals at this point, and he will be the challenger that challenges us in the finals. That kind of goes without saying, and that's kind of pretty predictable at this point, since obviously we spotted him in that email. But believe it or not, we are actually going to be rematching all of the Cypher admins once again, but this time in this place. So it looks like Cotton Swab is actually trying to learn the move Sky Attack. Now this move is kind of interesting. It is one of the most powerful flying type moves in the game. Power of 140, but only an accuracy of 90, which isn't terrible. What I'm actually going to do here is, well, I was going to forget Fly, but I forgot that it is still classified as an HM move. As you see, you get kind of an interesting message there, basically letting you know you cannot forget Fly, which is kind of interesting because I don't remember there being that many HM moves in this game. In fact, I think Fly might be one of the only ones that you can actually have in this game, your Pokemon know. So I was going to get rid of Fly for Sky Attack, but I decided to get rid of Dragon Breath instead. Now that may be kind of an interesting choice to some people, but I have kind of a plan for what I want Cotton Swab to learn. And I think Sky Attack, although is kind of a risky move because even though it does have a very high power of 140 and its accuracy is slightly lower, which makes it, kind of the same as like Thunder or some of those other high attack moves like Fire Blast. Another part about it that's risky is it actually takes a full turn to charge up, so you cannot actually use the attack until the second turn. So we meet again. You're not escaping my wrath this time. Yes, we are once again, for the 3rd time, battling against Cypher admin Mirror B. This guy has not really changed a whole lot since we have faced off with him the very first time and the second time, back in the Railgun Tower. As you can see, he starts off with a pair of Ludicolo, pretty typical for this guy to do. But we're actually going to go ahead and start off with Sky Attack and go ahead and show that off. So as you can see, you get kind of a message there letting you know that you do have to prepare the attack before it is actually unleashed. That kind of sucks. I forgot that Ludicolo no... Is it Giga Drain? So again, kind of a risky move, but once it actually hits, and if it actually can strike the opponent, even though it does have a slightly lower accuracy than I would like, it does some major damage. And I think it's kind of time to kind of take a chance here in this game. I think we are at that point where we can kind of give everything we have in this game. I think having some moves that are a little bit more riskier, but kind of higher reward if they do, you know, strike, might be a good idea to do for the rest of this game. And there's some other Pokemon I have in my team that are still yet to learn some moves that are also kind of risky as well and are pretty powerful. So I'm ready to go all out, baby. Man, that was kind of cringe. But as you can see, Mirror B does have an Exploud. I do not remember if he had this last time in Realgum Tower. I know his team did change slightly between the battle in the Pyrite Cave and Realgum Tower. I just can't remember exactly what the changes were. He is obviously a lot stronger this time. His Pokemon are, you know, pretty much at like level 65. So like I said in the Snag'em hideout, even though I kind of made it seem like Gonzap was going to be like the strongest trainer you would ever fight in the game, that isn't necessarily true, because as you can see, even though we have fought Mirror B before as well, his team has been leveled up quite a bit. So he is not messing around this time. This is the final time that you actually will be rematching all of the Cypher admins. Of course, Mirror B being the first one that you face off with. This is kind of giving you essentially a taste of what's to come throughout this, you know, Deep Colosseum battle challenge. So yeah, this place is no joke though. It is nice though, because they go back to the formula of healing up your team between each trainer battle. So that is kind of a nice thing to have on your side. However, once you get into these actual boss fights, it can be kind of challenging. Mirror B is not quite as bad. However, Dakum, Venus, and Ein are a little bit more challenging when you fight them in this place. And yeah, like I said, they are in this place. So you kind of have to prepare for that. If you don't know that going into it, it can be kind of tricky, and you're going to be maybe a little bit thrown off. It can be a little bit jarring, since, you know, you kind of have an idea of what they're going to do since you've battled them twice already, but they still have some tricks up their sleeve, man. And their Pokemon being higher leveled doesn't help anything at all. So if your Pokemon are not at least like level 55, you may struggle. Again, everybody's team's going to be different depending on their stats. But I think for this challenge, it's just, again, just a good idea to kind of go into this, you know, with a little thought, and you know, make sure you're stocking up on enough items, heals, all kinds of stuff for this series of battles. But again, what's nice is you can leave and come back if you have to go out and buy some things or some items that you might be lacking. Once we finish Mirror B here, you know, once we finish with Mirror B here, we will, you know, essentially just return back to the main registration office area, and then we can kind of go back and out to the map if we need to. But just keep in mind, you do have to face through 4 trainers in a row 5 different times to actually continue the post-game story at this point. So you will spend a lot of time here regardless of what you decide to do strategy-wise. If you decide to leave in between battles, I feel confident enough, and I actually stocked up on a good amount of items before I came here, because obviously I knew what I was getting into, you know, by the time we made it here. So yeah, they kind of throw a little bit of a hidden challenge in this post-game story. And another reason why I really like this game in its post-game section here at the end is, like, we've already gotten like a good amount of battles and a good amount of challenge in the main story, you know, up until when you face off with Evice. So not only did we had I forgot his Ludicolo actually knows Ice Beam. That can be a problem here for Cotton Swab, as you can see. Yeah, his Ludicolo do know a lot of better moves at this point as well, so keep an eye out for that. But what I was saying was, I feel like the main story gives you enough challenge already. Having a kind of a difficult post-game section here where you're actually battling some pretty strong trainers, even though you've already finished the final boss fight in the actual main story, is kind of a twist, and kind of, I don't know, I like it. I think it could have been shortened down maybe a little bit, but the main story isn't super long to begin with. It just is very involved in, like, you know, battling a bunch of trainers, obviously, and kind of doing a lot of running around for some of the NPCs in the game, like Net, and, you know, finding, you know, all this data you have to deliver, and you know, doing kind of some, basically kind of, you know, exploring a lot of different towns that you kind of explore several times throughout the game, which can seem kind of repetitive, but I'm kind of losing track of what I was saying here. But essentially what I mean is this post-game story, I think, is pretty meaty. Like, it has a lot to it, and I think it gives the game a lot more longevity, and I think it maybe not as replayable as, like, the actual main story of the game, but it is pretty interesting. Like, it kind of it's kind of a nice little reward for the player if you just want to keep going with the story and kind of see what else there is. They're essentially just kind of hiding these extra challenges and these extra battles where it kind of tests your skills and your Pokemon team, which I really like, even though it can be kind of tedious doing some of these extra side quests at the end of the game. And getting these emails, man, I will say the emails are a little bit much, to be honest. Overall, I don't really care for that, but it really isn't like that big of a deal. It's just mainly the fact that I don't really care for that, but again, I do like some of these extra challenges that they kind of give you the opportunity to kind of take on. So go ahead and wrap up our battle with Mirror B here. Yeah, as you can see, his team is pretty similar. I do know he had Armaldo last time. So I believe Exploud, I want to say he had it the second time we faced off with him as well. So I think his team, for the most part, is still pretty similar. But again, the real challenge kind of begins after we defeat him. So and as much as I've talked about him being kind of the easiest of the four, it definitely doesn't seem like that in this battle. I'm kind of getting my ass handed to me here. It has been a while since I've done this. I have replayed through this game fairly recently, but it has been recent enough to where I remember it being this bad just on this first one. But, you know, we'll see what we can do here. We still have a good amount of heals, even though my team has been utterly destroyed. I did not see that Ice Beam coming from Ludicolo. I forgot his Ludicolo had that, and that's kind of a problem for a couple of members of my team. So I think that's mainly the main issue here is his Ludicolo. They are very hard to take down unless you absolutely have something that is very weak, that they are very weak against. So as you can see, we have it narrowed down to just the Armaldo, so we should be able to kind of hopefully clean up here and kind of end this battle gracefully. Have Apollo do its psychic thing, and that should make fine work of Armaldo. Pretty effective against it. I also would highly recommend having some sort of defensive wall move, so Reflect, Light Screen. I think those are both very valuable moves to have in these fights. I have Pokemon that know both of those moves, so that's why I kind of made a point to have Sage learn Light Screen, and then also Flashlight also knows it as well. So, but also having Protect and using the Protect Earthquake strategy, I think, is a good idea as well. Just in this particular fight, it wasn't as effective. Oh, no, my tempo is off again. This won't do at all. That does it for that first round of challenges. Many more to go, unfortunately. Congratulations, you're the champion. You battled fabulously. Please accept your cash prize of 20 grand. And as a victory prize, we get a TM once again. So yeah, the TMs are still given to you in this Coliseum as well. It looks like we got an email. We'll go ahead and check that out. I think we know who that's going to be from. Roll the dice of the, two people that have been emailing us. This is Ned. I've heard you've gone to Deep Colosseum. I heard a rumor about it. There's supposed to be a seriously tough trainer who goes by the name of Deep King. I wonder what Pokemon he uses. Kind of interesting. And so we are actually name dropped another interesting character. So TM12 is actually Taunt. And it is now time for our second round of Deep Colosseum challenges. Once again, these normal trainers for the first 3 fights will be sped up because they are not anything special, and there's really no need to show these in full speed. Hell, I should cut these out entirely, but I just feel generous enough to just show these just because I feel like I'm kind of cheating the audience or whoever's watching my videos out of entertainment if I am not showing the entire battle. I don't know. But yeah, these trainers are, again, these are all very easy trainers, even though they are in their level 60s. So, you know, whatever strategies you have that work, or at least have worked to get you through to this point of the game, you can pretty much use these here. Not really a lot to say about that. So, but another reason I think that they kind of make this post game a little bit more lengthy and difficult is mainly for the fact that this game obviously follows a much different formula than most mainline Pokemon games out there. In fact, obviously with this being kind of one of the first major spin-off Pokemon games in the series, they wanted to go a completely different route, and I really like the route that they took, and I really like the idea of having Pokemon that you can snag from other trainers, and then purifying them, you know, with the Relic Stone in the Agate Forest, or the Relic Forest in Agate Village. I really like that idea. I think the only problem, I think the main reason why this post game kind of feels like a little bit drawn out is because they kind of have to pad it up, I think. It almost feels like they have to kind of pad the game, because in the main games you have a lot of gym battles, you have a lot more like actual story elements, at least in the, like, you know, DS games, probably like Generation 3 Game Boy Advance games. It kind of feels like it's like, you know, Fire Red Leaf Green has like the Sebi Islands that they added. Emerald, Ruby, and Sapphire have like the whole plot line with Team Magma and Team Aqua. It almost feels like they just kind of had to add more to the game to kind of make it as long, to have the player invest almost the same amount of time as you would in those other games. Because at this point I've invested probably like 30 plus hours into the game. Hell, I don't even remember if it's even longer than that. I haven't checked the PC. I haven't really paid attention to the time in a long time. But that's just kind of how it feels. Like they had to add a little bit more to the end part of the game, kind of make up for having more of like a straightforward, not quite as long main story. Duh, ha ha ha, you again. I'll crush you. As you can see, we are now rematching Cypher admin Dakum once again. His team is a little bit different this time and very deadly. One of the major changes to his team that I know for sure, he now has a Swampert, which of course is evolved from the Marshtomp that he had in the first fight that we had with him back at Mount Battle when he was infiltrating it. Swampert is kind of a tough Pokemon to go up against unless you have something that is very strong against it, which in our case would be Sage. He also has a Claydol, which is nothing to mess around with. As you can see, it knows Earthquake, and although that has been his go-to for I think both of the first two battles, I think he used this strategy. Claydol is an interesting Pokemon as well because it doesn't have a lot of weaknesses either, with it being part ground and part psychic. It can be a tough dual type to match up against because, yeah, it just is overall. I've never had an easy time taking out a Claydol in any Pokemon game that I've ever played. The best strategy I always use against Dakum's Claydol is to use Surf with Quagsire. Marsha does know Rain Dance, so having Rain on the field to power up Surf wouldn't be a bad idea as well. Although I do think it is now time to send out Sage to go ahead and take care of that Swampert. He has some other scary Pokemon in his team this time around as well. So we have not seen anything yet. And as you can see, his Claydol also knows Solar Beam. I can't remember if he used this strategy last time, but that is also another issue. Earthquake, Solar Beam, that is not a good combination to go up against in any Pokemon battle. However, this is where Sage really comes into play because obviously Solar Beam won't do, even though it is very powerful, won't do a lot to Sage with it being a grass type, and Swampert is ×4 weak to grass move with it being part water and part ground. We're going to go ahead and just try the Razor Leaf strategy. Not only will it hit both opponents at the same time, Claydol is also partially weak to grass with it being part ground, but it is essentially going to be the best move to play here in this particular battle. But as you can see, he's also using Sunny Day, so we know what he's doing there. We've seen that before in this game. The old Sunny Day Solar Beam combination, where he now essentially has full swing of his Solar Beam. He does not have to wait for it to charge up at all. He can just kind of fire it left and right until that sun stops shining. So that is something to look out for. If you have another weather affecting move in your team or within your party, this is probably a good time to do that. So but luckily we did take out Swampert. That thing can be annoying once again if you do not take it out fairly quickly. And here it is. So next up on the chopping block, we have Flygon. Flygon is a pretty strong opponent. Again, this was a Pokemon I was once considering for my team, although I went with Altaria instead. Kind of ironic that we have Cotton Swab on the field at this time. Flygon, like Altaria, is Dragon. So Ice Beam or any ice attacks that are powerful are essentially the best way to take it out. Psychic would be essentially the backup move if you are using Espeon. And in my case, since I am using Apollo, obviously that is probably our best shot other than using Ice Beam. So luckily our Marsha does know Ice Beam, which is again another really good reason why I had Marsha learn that move and saved up enough points at the points from Mount Battle to go ahead and purchase it from their item exchange. Because as you can see, yeah, there's a lot of uses for Ice Beam in this game for sure. So now it is time to send out Marsha since Sage went down. I think this is the perfect time. I was mainly just waiting for Swampert to be taken out. But now we are in a little bit of a better position here. The only thing that kind of sucks is I got rid of Dragon Breath, so that would have been kind of effective against Flygon, using it with Cotton Swab. However, we have more strategies to use, of course, with Ice Beam. I'm thinking now is a good time to go ahead and use some of these energy roots. And as you can see, Flygon also knows Solar Beam. And with that Sunny Day, it will allow it to wreak havoc on us. And that is not a good thing right there to see Marsha go down, because she was really the main player I was banking on for taking down that Flygon. We're going to send Apollo back out. As you can see, this time around, he is using a Solrock. Solrock is another Pokemon that can be kind of difficult to take out, since it is both a Psychic and a Rock type. Again, not a lot of types that can go up against that very effectively, unless you're using, again, Water, which we need to do. So we need to bring Marsha back in. I'm actually not ashamed. Oh, it looks like he's using X accuracy. I've not seen that used, I don't think, in this game yet. So yeah, looks like he's another trainer that uses, takes advantage of the old items. Don't really see a lot of that in the game. But yeah, I'm really not ashamed to go ahead and just revive Pokemon during these fights, because this is really one of the hardest parts of the game. If you thought the Cypher Colosseum at the top of Realgum Tower and that series of challenges was hard, which it is, because they don't heal you between fights, which is really the main challenge to it. Honestly, the fights at the end aren't that bad if you have your Pokemon leveled up enough, but besides the point. If you thought those were bad, you have those fights have nothing on these fights. I think these are the hardest fights in the game, period. I think Mount Battle has some pretty tough challengers towards the end. Again, that final lineup of trainers at the top of the Realgum Tower is pretty challenging again, but I really think the main challenge of this game is right here in this very moment. This was honestly one of the parts of the game I was kind of dreading, because I've had many losses in here. Like, this Deep Colosseum scared me off from finishing this post-game story many years ago, and I almost stopped playing the game and just didn't want to finish the main story or the post-game story because of this place. And the fact that we have to face off with these challenges another 3 times is very intimidating and very kind of tough to chew on, knowing that you could have a rough time in these first 2 rounds very easily. As you can see, Mirror B kind of gave me a run for my money, like starting off, and Dakem is obviously no pushover as well. So This place can be very challenging, so it's just really important again to just stock up on the right items and having your Pokemon trained up enough. Also having the right movesets and just knowing what Pokemon to send out at the right time. But as you can see, very narrowly, we have defeated Dakem. Once again. This can't be. The mighty Dakem loses again. Return back to the registration counter. Congratulations. We are the champion once again. We get another cash prize. The money is very nice in this challenge, though. Another TM. This is TM48. And of course, we get yet again another email. Starting to really rethink this whole give people our email thing. This is Net. I'm getting information about Deep King, but slowly. He does sound like an expert trainer, though. I wonder what kind of Pokemon he uses. So still, this Deep King is still quite a mystery, so it sounds like Net is going to be our guy to get some more deets on him. TM48 is Skill Swap. And it is now time to re-enter the Deep Colosseum Challenge once again. Number 3. Now, I have to say, another reason why I actually really like this part of the game. I know I've talked a lot about how, you know, doing all these different battles and having to rematch all of these, and having to rematch all the Cypher admins and going through all these different trainers so many different times can be tedious, and that is true. But one thing that really kind of caught my attention and kind of captivated me when I first played this part of the game was just kind of the whole mystery behind who this Deep King guy is. He's a very mysterious character that's introduced so late in this game, and you're given very little detail about him other than he essentially is like this very strong trainer that essentially is the champion of this entire Deep Colosseum. Now to me, that's very intriguing, and it's kind of keeps the suspense going. And again, we've already uncovered a lot of deep and dark secrets of this game. I mean, coming across those cages when you are chasing Venus in the subway of the Under, and you come across the Shadow Liner and you find those cages where it is to be assumed that that's where they held some of the Shadow Pokemon, transporting them from the Shadow Lab, which is very gross and sinister. You know, thinking about that, also thinking about the fact that Evice was the big bad the whole time, calling the shots, was the head of Cypher, and he essentially disguised himself as the mayor of Phoenix City, who you encounter and meet very early in the game. You know, those things are very suspenseful, and they really keep your attention going and kind of keep the mystery going as you're playing through the main story. But to add even more suspense to the end of the game, just to kind of keep it interesting and add that element of surprise, even though it's kind of more of a minor part. I mean, this Deep King guy really has no major contribution to the story other than the fact that he is essentially one of the strongest trainers in this place. I don't know, to me that still is very interesting and very intriguing, and I like the fact that they keep this, and I just really like the fact that they keep the suspense going even at this part of the game. Oh no, not you again. You're annoyingly persistent. So it is now time to rematch Lady Venus for the second time. She starts off with a Dusclops and a Blissey. Dusclops we have seen in many battles before. We kind of know the drill. It's a ghost type. We cannot hit it with any normal type moves, and Psychic is going to be super effective against it. Not worried about this thing at all whatsoever. However, it can still kind of throw us off a little bit. I believe it does know Confuse Ray. We're going to throw up a Light Screen to negate any special attacks it may throw at us. She also has a Blissey, and as you can see, starting off here with a Flamethrower, this is kind of throwing a wrench into the game here. Blissey is actually a Pokemon we have not seen at all in this game yet, and it's a very interesting choice. Blissey has a very high amount of HP. However, if you have something that has, if you have maybe a fighting type Pokemon or a Pokemon that knows, a pretty good fighting move, you can make fine work of this thing within a short amount of time. Unfortunately, I don't have anything like that because I did not go with a fighting type, and I don't think any of my Pokemon know any fighting type moves. We're gonna have a little bit of a harder time with it, but it really isn't all that big and bad, even though it looks kind of intimidating. And the size of that thing, I gotta say, is pretty damn large for being a evolved form of Chansey. I mean, Chansey's pretty big overall. As you can see, she has some pretty interesting type coverage going on here. So Flamethrower is kind of her secret, kind of her ace in the hole with Blissey. I'm not really sure exactly strategically if it makes sense for Blissey to know Flamethrower, since it doesn't really do much against a fighting type, and that's really the main thing that's effective against it. But she also has a Raichu here. We have seen her use Raichu before, so we kind of know what to expect with it. However, if you have been using the Protect Earthquake strategy, this is an absolutely perfect time to use it because of course Raichu is completely vulnerable to ground type moves. And as you can see, she has not yet retired her other main strategy, which is to use Attract on a Pokemon of the opposite gender. And once again, Attract essentially just kind of prolongs the battle and makes it a little bit harder for your Pokemon to actually make a move. And also with the combination of Confusion here, that's going to complicate things very much because Confusion on top of Attract is going to make it nearly impossible, not totally impossible, but very, very much harder to actually land any type of attack, which essentially is what she's trying to do here. She's essentially going to stall you out, use some of these other type coverage and special attacks to eventually whittle down your team's health, and that's essentially what she's going to do. I've never considered Venus the hardest by any means of the 4 Cypher admins. I think she, although isn't a walk in the park, she's a little bit sneaky and more passive-aggressive of her battle strategy, knowing that she mainly uses Attract. Doesn't really have a lot of moves that she uses to attack you directly with. She just kind of slowly weakens your team while still making them while still slowing them down by, using these dual strategies here. We're going to go for the Sky Attack here, see what it can do to Blissey. Very nice. I was actually not expecting it to do that much, but I'll take it. So we have knocked Blissey out and got it out of the way. As you can see, it wasn't really any threat at all. So now she is throwing yet again another wrench into the game. This time around, she is going to be using a Meganium. We have not seen her use a Meganium. We'll go ahead and just take out Raichu with Earthquake there. Very simple. Again, that one wasn't really too hard to go up against since we had that strategy already in place. Meganium, on the other hand, is going to be a little bit of a different story. However, since Cotton Swab does know Sky Attack, Fly would have been as effective, but Sky Attack is obviously a lot more powerful. A little less accurate, but a lot more powerful. But she's also now going to send out her final Pokemon, which is Milotic. Milotic, of course, is a water type, so we know exactly how to handle it. The problem with Milotic is it knows Ice Beam. Ice Beam, of course, is a problem for Cotton Swab, with it being ×4 weak against it. So that's going to be kind of a problem there. It's going to make it a little bit harder to take out Meganium if we lose Cotton Swab. And, of course, with a Giga Drain, that will be kind of a nightmare for Marcia. So, although we have, a pretty good team set up, the type coverage here and the moves that her Pokemon know are really the main issue there. So, again, she's not going to hit you with full-on power, but she's more just kind of a strategic queen where, again, different types of moves that she has her Pokemon know will kind of come out at the wrong time. And again, if you have, like you just saw there, the wrong Pokemon out at the wrong time, it can get ugly for you. But overall, she isn't the toughest trainer out of the 4 admin, in my personal opinion. However, we do still have Flashlight. It is here to save the day. We can easily take out that Milotic with a nice Thunderbolt. Or we can just go ahead and do it with Cotton Swab's Sky Attack here. That'll work just as well. Again, really nothing on her team is too intimidating. Again, maybe Blissey might give you the hardest time just because it can stand up to a lot of attacks. And it has a lot of HP. Her Meganium, I think, would probably be her main ace in the hole for this fight. Just because it does no Giga Drain. If you have any water or ground or rock types, that could be a problem. But otherwise, she's really not all that bad. As you can see, we tried to do Fire Blast there to kind of finish things off, but it did not successfully hit, unfortunately, because obviously Fire Blast doesn't have the best accuracy. It has a pretty damn good accuracy, but not perfect. Went ahead and paralyzed Meganium. We'll go ahead and kind of finish this battle off here. But apart from that, there really isn't much left to say about Venus. Again, her strategy is pretty similar to how it was before, much like most of the other Cypher admins. I guess she just kind of wanted to give us another appearance and kind of say hello to us after how long it's been. Realgum Tower, I guess, wasn't too long ago, but Venus just wanted to go ahead and make her appearance once again. She loves being in the spotlight, loves being on camera, loves the attention, so it only makes sense. Go give it another Fire Blast, and that should do it. That'll finish off Meganium, and that gives us the win, the dub against Venus. Tons of experience points. It's another good thing about doing these battles is you will gain a lot of experience. How dare you? How dare you? That concludes our third round in the Deep Colosseum. We get TM44. And, of course, another email from our good friends. We love communication, don't we? This is Net. I've been slowly getting more information on the trainer Deep King. He apparently uses a Shadow Shuckle. He could be very tenacious. So here comes that Shuckle coming into play. TM44 is Rest. Nice move to regain health. That is something that I will say that is also very nice about having this Deep Colosseum section, kind of happening here at the end of the game, is it gives you once again another opportunity to gather a good amount of experience points. And if I haven't talked about it enough, then I might as well say it again here, is I love the idea of the game giving you plenty of exposure to essentially get your team ready to go for really any part of the game, any major battle coming up. You have multiple avenues to take in order to actually prepare for those fights. So although it can be tedious to grind out levels, I mean, that again is really a major part of almost every Pokemon game out there. This game almost feels as if it's unlimited as far as the amount of options that you have to train your team. You have Mount Battle, of course. You have all the different Colosseums. Now we have this Colosseum, which is probably one of the best ones. I mean, honestly, between this one and the Under, they probably have the strongest trainers out of all the other Colosseum fights, but it's just nice that they give you options that are plentiful when trying to strategize and figure out how you're going to level up your team. Of course, they do kind of have to make up for the fact that there are no wild Pokemon. There are no patches of grass you can just run out into with Pokemon that are kind of close to where your team would be in level in specific areas of the game to train up against. So it's a nice way to kind of give the player another option to just kind of grind out some levels. So I really like that. And although it feels like I've touched on this many times in the past, I have to give it another praise again, just because I still really think that this game and XD are really underrated games. And I really feel like a lot of the positives of the game are kind of outshined just because there's so many different battles that you have to participate in. And with double battles, they do take a lot of it. They are very time consuming, so I think that kind of takes away from some people's viewpoints of the game and some people's opinions, where they kind of are a little bit bogged down by all the double battles, that they don't really take a moment to kind of, they don't really take a moment to step back and actually appreciate all the good things that this game does and how many opportunities they give you to really gain, again, a lot of experience in training for your main team, allowing you to grow and, have your team learn, have all your Pokemon learn all the moves that you are wanting them to learn, and giving you the ability to strategize a lot better. You You don't give up, do you? I'll make you atone for thwarting our shadow Pokemon, Kappa. Cypher Admin Ein has returned to the scene. This guy is the one Cypher Admin out of these 4 that I am actually a little bit afraid of. He has a much upgraded team compared to the last 2 times we faced off with him. Obviously, everybody that we faced off with in this place has the same situation, so why would his be any different? But Cypher Admin Ein is obviously the 4th of the admins that we're going to be free matching again. But he starts off right away with a Gyarados and a Manectric. Gyarados is pretty devastating if you don't have a nice plan in place for it. Luckily, we do have Thunderbolt, so that is going to be kind of our ace in the hole to take it out. However, Manectric is pretty fast and knows Thunder, which can be troubling, although it did miss there. But Gyarados, luckily, missed as well. But Gyarados also knows Hydro Pump, which is one of the most powerful water type moves in existence and can be very devastating no matter what Pokemon you have out on the field. It does an absolutely insane amount of damage. I'll put it on the screen here, and it's just very hard to really go up against if you don't really have any clear plan in place. His Manectric also is very wise of him to do this, but it also knows Protect, so he has already seen your Earthquake strategy coming, and he has essentially prepared for it. That can make this battle a little bit more difficult, although not impossible. Again, only Protect can only work for a certain amount of times in a row. I believe that you can't even use it more than like 2 times in a row from what I remember. It will eventually miss, so if he tries to spam it every turn, you will eventually break through at some point. Although Thunder, on the other hand, is not quite as workaroundable. Cotton Swab does have part Dragon traits, so Thunder isn't going to do an incredible amount of damage, but it still is super effective. Gyarados is also a threat because not only does it know Hydro Pump, but it also knows Earthquake. And I have to thank you there, Chief Ein, for taking out one of your own teammates there. I appreciate that very much. Check will be in the mail later. So yeah, he actually kind of screwed up there. I think what his NPC is designed to do is use Protect with Manectric and then use Earthquake with Gyarados, obviously utilizing the traditional Protect Earthquake strategy, but he was not successful there, of course, in this particular instance. He's also going to have a Rhydon. I believe we've seen this before. I want to say he had it in one of the other earlier fights we had with him. Rhydon also does also know Protect, so as you can see, he will still utilize that same strategy throughout most of the fight, as most of his Pokemon know similar moves. Now, Rhydon is a problem when trying to take out Gyarados for the simple fact that it will essentially absorb your Thunderbolt if you're using it against Gyarados, because I believe the ability it has is called like Lightning Rod or something like that, where essentially if you use an electric attack against Gyarados or whatever other Pokemon is out on the field, Rhydon's Lightning Rod will absorb it and actually stop it from hitting Gyarados. So that can cause a few problems, and it can actually take a little bit longer to take Gyarados out. So luckily we were able to take out Rhydon with a nice Surf, since that is majorly devastating to it. He also has Mantine, which essentially acts the same as Gyarados, except it's not quite as threatening. So we know exactly how to handle that one as well. However, I have to say, this fight is not going as badly as I thought it would. I have a full team of Pokemon here ready to go. Obviously, I've been using some heals here. I'm not really a stranger to doing that. Again, at this point of the game, I'm not really ashamed of using any heals. These fights are typically pretty hard, but for some reason I'm actually having a pretty decent go with this, other than, well, the first 2. But yeah, Gyarados again is really the major threat here. He's just going to keep essentially spamming that attack, and if he has Mantine out on the field with Gyarados, there's absolutely nothing that Earthquake can do to either of those 2, so ground type moves are essentially going to be completely useless if you're trying to use that same strategy back at him. We'll go ahead and use Protect with Flashlight, since obviously Earthquake is going to be very devastating to it if it gets hit by it. And we are going to utilize Cotton Swab's Fly attack. Fly is really the best option I have here. It's again with Earthquake being struck on the field so many times, it's going to be hard to get an opening to actually take out either of these two, even though a one-time use of Thunderbolt would probably take care of both of them in one shot. Well, obviously one at a time. And of course, looks like Confusion is going to put an end to my strategy here. That's kind of unfortunate. And it's like his Mantine is using Toxic. So there's another kind of hidden strategy that he is going to use, where he will use Toxic to poison one of your Pokemon, or maybe both of them. And it will essentially eventually take out your Pokemon if you do not do something about it. I think it takes about 6 turns if you do nothing about the poison from a Toxic, and then it will essentially take out your Pokemon and cause it to faint. Now, one thing I actually have found to be kind of interesting is I have noticed at times when you're going up against an opponent trainer in this game, I have actually witnessed this firsthand where an opponent will actually use Toxic on their own team member. So instead of using it on one of your Pokemon, they will use it on one of their own. And at first I thought this was some sort of glitch or, flaw in the AI in this game. However, it's actually a logical calculation being done by the AI, which is actually known as shifted AI. So when the AI uses Toxic on its own teammate, it is intentionally trying to activate a specific strategy. The AI detects that its own Pokemon possesses the Guts ability, which essentially boosts the Pokemon's attack stat by 50% if it's afflicted with the status condition, which obviously Toxic causing poison is one of the main status conditions in this game. And I'm not sure if a lot of people have actually talked about this much, but apparently in Mount Battle or the Colosseums, this can actually happen a lot more frequently, where one Pokemon will know Toxic and the other will have the Guts ability. The first Pokemon will use Toxic, of course, on its own teammate to trigger the attack boost if it does have that ability. So it would actually essentially transform its own team member into a massive physical threat, as the AI would see this as a more optimal choice. So kind of interesting. And I've also pointed out, and I think we've seen it a few times already in this playthrough, where the AI would actually use Earthquake even though the other Pokemon out on the field on their team is vulnerable to it. So for example, if there's a Pokemon that can get hit by Earthquake, which is essentially anything besides a flying type, or any Pokemon that has Levitate for its ability, the AI is actually still using a calculation to do this. And apparently the AI computes the total potential damage it can actually cause across the entire battlefield, whereas it's not necessarily just making a sacrifice and taking out one of its own teammates. It's actually doing, again, further advanced calculations to see if the two Pokemon that are on the field on your side are heavily weak to ground type attacks. The AI simply calculates massive damage against your team, even if its own teammate takes significant damage from the Earthquake, or even faints in the Crossfire. Pretty interesting. And again, the reason why the AI does this, the AI's logic is actually deciding whether or not it's worth, essentially eviscerating your team pretty heavily to make that sacrifice. Because again, it prioritizes total damage output over preserving its own team member. Very, very interesting. I never knew how far into the calculation and logic process that the AI actually was involved with. So kind of interesting to see that. And it definitely answers my question as to why the hell it happens in the first place. I literally thought it was just simply a design flaw. I had no idea there was actually some sort of logic involved in it at all. As you can see, we have once again defeated Ein, surprisingly, pretty easily. What unbelievable power. We get TM02. This is Net. There's a rumor that Deep King has entered in the knockout tourney at the Deep Colosseum. Wes, you've got to enter too and show up His Highness. So it sounds like Deep King has officially entered. TM02 is actually Dragon Claw, an attack that hooks and slashes the target with long, sharp claws. So before we re-challenge the Deep Colosseum one last time to finally encounter this Deep King, I have decided to travel all the way back to Mount Battle because there's actually a pretty important reason why I want to come here. Now, if you remember this old fellow who just kind of sitting, who is just kind of hanging out here in the main lobby at the Mount Battle registration office, He is actually the move deleter in this game. So believe it or not, you can come here anytime and obviously take out and obviously eliminate any move that you feel the need to. So I decided to go ahead and have him make Cotton Swab forget the move Fly, since I tried to get rid of it before when we learned Sky Attack, but I was not able to do it traditionally since I was not planning on keeping Fly long term. And the reason I want to do this is because not only did I want Cotton Swab to learn Sky Attack, but I also wanted to learn a much stronger Dragon type move, which I was going to get rid of Dragon Breath for anyhow. And that move is Dragon Claw. Dragon Claw, as you can see, it has a power of 80 and is 100% accurate, making it a much better move than Dragon Breath overall, and was actually the final move I was wanting to teach my Altaria. And as you can see, there are my other move sets for the rest of my team. But now I think it is finally time to take this challenge on one more time, because we have a Deep King to face off against. The Deep Colosseum actually has another important reason for existing. And that is actually to give you, yet again, another chance to capture all of the shadow Pokemon that Mirror Bee, Venus, Dakem, and Ein held when you first encountered them. And those Pokemon, of course, are Sudowoodo, Entei, Suicune, and Raikou. So believe it or not, they give you 2 additional attempts to actually capture these Pokemon if you were to fail on the first time you encounter the Cypher admins. So kind of generous. Well, I actually should say that's very generous, because as you saw earlier in this playthrough, I actually failed on one of those 4, and it was Raikou. So if I had actually failed to capture Raikou back in Realgum Tower, which is your second chance to catch them, I would actually have another opportunity to do it here in the Deep Colosseum. That is very clever, and again, I forgot to mention this at the beginning of this challenge, but I think it is very important to mention it anyways, because again, I don't think it's necessarily that difficult to capture the shadow Pokemon in this game, but if for whatever reason that you just had horrible luck and you were not able to capture any of those Pokemon on the first or even second try that they give you, you have yet again another chance to do it here at the good old Deep Colosseum. So very nice, very generous, and again, just another added layer of safety net there, just to make sure that you are able to 100% the game and complete that snag list that we have going on. So, but otherwise, I think I have pretty much given my full thoughts and opinions as we kind of near the end here at the Deep Colosseum. Again, I like having it here. I think maybe going through it like once or twice would have been better, and probably it would have been a lot more a lot less painful, I guess I would say, overall. But again, just the fact that this exists as, again, another challenge that you can take on after the main story is over. Also getting nice rewards. I mean, the Dragon Claw TM is probably one of the best ones you get in this game, and going through it, really just 4 times is required to get the TM, but obviously to continue the post-game story, you have to complete it 5 times in a row. But I think they give you enough rewards to essentially make up for the pain that you have to go through by facing all these trainers. You're challenging me. You don't know what you're in for. So it is time to finally meet and face off with Deep King Agnol, the champion of the Deep Colosseum. So this is the Deep King that we've been hearing so much about in our many annoying emails that we've been getting from Ned and Bits. This guy has kind of an interesting appearance. Again, he shows up so late in the game where it kind of is a little odd that he's introduced at this point. I feel like he could have been easily a recurring NPC, maybe earlier on in the main story, where we could kind of get maybe, foreshadowing moments with. Remember when we last saw the mother of Pyrite, who is the fortune teller of the town? She gave us a very vague but actually very important prediction that we would eventually encounter some sort of dark cloud deep underneath the ground or something along those lines. So she's actually talking about Venus here in this vision. However, for whatever reason, I always assumed that she was talking about the Deep King. I'm not really sure why. I think I associated like Deep Underground with Deep Colosseum. But she actually first gives you this prediction as soon as you finish at Mount Battle after your first encounter with Dakum. You can come here and she will say this as soon as that in the game. For some reason, I didn't know this and thought it was some sort of relation to the Deep King and the Deep Colosseum. There's a lot of games that do kind of utilize some sort of like fortune teller mechanic, and most of the games, they really do it in a way where it's not that interesting, or it's very skippable or missable or just really vague. But I think the Mother of Pyrite, for some reason, it just kind of feels a little bit more valuable, where even though her hints aren't like incredibly, aren't incredibly revealing, and it doesn't really like break the game or make it like almost ridiculous to play because her hints are so easy. She gives away so many details. Like, it's nothing like that at all. In fact, I don't even remember how many hints she actually gives you in total. I think it's like maybe a total of 1 or 2 throughout the game. But the fact that they just decided to have that in the game as well as like a nice little foreshadowing moment, I just really love that. I don't know I don't know what it is about it. I just really love that idea. But enough about that. Deep King, we haven't really talked much about his team because there really isn't a lot to say right now. Girafarig and Sableye, these aren't Pokemon that are really that intimidating overall. So this guy is actually not that bad compared to the 4 Cypher Adamants that we just rematched. I would actually go out on a limb to say that Ein and maybe even like Dakim are a lot stronger and harder than the Deep King himself. However, he does have, I believe, 1 or 2 Pokemon that are pretty scary, so I wouldn't say that you are completely out of the woods yet. I just think overall his team is a lot less intense than some of the Pokemon that we've just faced here recently. Girafarig is one of those Pokemon that I don't really know what to do against it, because really the only thing that's effective against it are Dark-type moves, and unless you're using Umbreon, which I am not in this playthrough, it's kind of hard to really come up with a good strategy. Earthquake is really the best go-to that I can think of that can really do much at all to it. Sableye is another Pokemon that's kind of interesting, where it's a Ghost Dark type, and that's kind of a interesting dual type to go up against, since Psychic is essentially not effective against it at all, with it being part Dark type. And you really are kind of limited on what you can actually do to it. So I always get a little bit meh when I see a Sableye, because I know it's going to be kind of one of those battles where it kind of can drag on a bit, but it's not going to be challenging at all, and I'm just kind of ready to get it over with. But maybe that's just me. I'm kind of out there. I don't know why I thought that was going to work. We lose Marsha in the process, but this battle was far from over, even though he has taken out half of our team already. And I will say that, yeah, it is pretty obvious that Scorch has been very underutilized during this Deep Colosseum. I tried my best to really make Scorch stand out and be, pretty effective in this playthrough. I think he definitely had his moments, especially during the fight with Evice. That was not something I saw coming at all. Like, I didn't expect Scorch to last long at all in that battle, to be honest, but it's been just kind of difficult to take the advantage of really many battles with Scorch, because again, there wasn't really a lot of opportunity to do so. And here it is. So here is one of his Pokemon that kind of scare me a little bit, and this is Kingdra. This is the first time we have ever seen Kingdra in this game. Kingdra is an interesting Pokemon because it has a dual type of both water and dragon. That can be kind of hell to go up against. He also has Skarmory. We've seen Skarmory before. We know what we can easily go up against that with Thunderbolt, so I'm not really too worried about that one at all. But yeah, overall, apart from Kingdra here, and then one other Pokemon that he does have, his type matchup is pretty simple, to be honest. Another major threat from Kingdra here is it knows Ice Beam. That's bad news for Cotton Swab, as you can see there, just kind of went down. So he obviously has a strategy in place, but again, comparing this fight to the last 4 major boss battles that we just had, it's honestly probably one of the more chill out of all of them, in my personal opinion. Others may disagree. I just think this guy is not as intimidating as he sounds, at least through the emails that we've been getting. And here is the one and only shadow Pokemon that he holds. It is Shuckle. And this is, apart from all the other reasons why I said it was beneficial to challenge the Deep Colosseum, another good reason why we had to come here is because, yes, he does have a shadow Pokemon. We actually have one more shadow Pokemon after this one, so our hunt is nearing an end, believe it or not. Shuckle is an interesting Pokemon. It's actually a bug and rock type. For some reason, I have lived a good amount of my life thinking this thing was like pure water type, or like a water slash rock type, or water slash bug type. No, it's bug and rock. And I don't know, to me that's always kind of weird because it reminded me, it just looks like a turtle, right? Like, is it not a turtle? I don't even really know for sure. But Shuckle's an interesting one. It's very defensive. That probably is the best thing it has going for it. Otherwise, it's pretty useless. But it is kind of difficult to capture because of that, but not impossible. It just takes a little bit of time. So what we're going to try to do here is just single out his team. Oh, okay, so he actually did not have... so really, Kingdra was the one I was afraid of. He didn't have the other Pokemon I thought he had. For some reason, I thought he had like a Salamence or something. I don't know what I was thinking, but I think that was Evice. Yeah, as you can see, his team, apart from Kingdra, this guy's team is pretty easy to tear apart. Shuckle surprisingly comes to level 45, even though we've been facing off with nothing but like level 60 plus Pokemon throughout this place. So that's kind of interesting, but its defense greatly makes up for that, because again, this thing is still a pretty... This thing is still going to take a good amount of time to weaken before you can actually capture it. Of course, if we get lucky here and capture it at, its health at, where it's at now, that would be great. We're actually going to go ahead and try that now. We'll go ahead and just start chucking some great balls. We have really no reason to hang on to many of those left throughout the rest of this game, since we only have one more capture after this one. But we'll go ahead and try it right now. And believe it or not, that was a one attempt capture. I am actually shocked, speechless, that actually worked. I was not expecting that at all whatsoever. We have defeated Deep King Agnol. I see you are skilled. And that ends the final challenge at the Deep Colosseum, everybody. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. No, I'm kidding. Congratulations, you are the champion. You battled fabulously. And believe it or not, we actually get a lower amount of money for our prize reward than the rest of the challenges, which is kind of odd. And we get no TM for that one, so that's kind of annoying. No, I'm not really mad about it at all. I got some pretty good finds here. We got Dragon Claw. We got a good amount of stuff going on here, so not too mad about that. But yeah, it is a little tedious, I will say. But now that we are done at the Deep Colosseum, our time in the Under comes to an end. Believe it or not, I don't think we actually ever have to come back here. However, if you remember, before we had entered the Deep Colosseum registration office, we found a nasty pair of steel teeth just lying around outside of the entrance of that gate. This guy, if you remember from before, had some trouble speaking. Well, I think you can kind of guess as to what he was missing. Pokemon Pikachu picked a pack of Pokeballs. Oh, no more air leakage. Ah, I can finally talk normal again. You're a savior. I thank you for your kindness. It's perhaps not much of a thanks, but I'd like you to have this. And he gives us the L disc. This is the last of the directional disc. I have another one, so don't concern yourself over me. This guy is kind of a lifesaver. Well, you'll kind of see here once we put this thing into operation. Am I imagining this? My mouth feels gritty. Yeah, he's a little bit of an interesting old man. But we can now use the 5th and final directional disc in our UFO machine. And now all systems are set for traveling in the leftward direction. Board now, please. So this is the final direction that we have yet to travel with this UFO transportation device. And that item box that has been sitting out there in the corner, this whole time has been inaccessible until this very moment. This is the moment we've all been waiting for. It is the second Master Ball. No, I'm just kidding. It's not. It's an amulet coin. So an amulet coin is a pretty decent item. Essentially, we'll go and take a look here. It actually so it doubles the money in battle if the holder takes part. So whichever Pokemon is holding it has to actually participate in battle for it to take effect, but can be a nice little item if you are a little bit short on cash. The bad news is you get it at the very pretty much end of the damn game, so it essentially is useless in this game. I don't know why they did that. Going back to Net's house. Oh, Wes. Oh, yeah, okay. So Meg's saying the same crap she always says. She needs to come up with some new things to say. Wes, you've done it. Yeah, as you can see, nothing else goes on here at Net's house, so we have nothing left to do here. Net has come through for us many times this adventure, but I guess he has outlived his usefulness to us. I just love this guy. He's still up here on this roof. Is that right? You got 5 of them UFO operating discs? Makes me wonder how many more there are in total. No, we actually got them all, sir, so you can actually stop guessing because there's 5. So the answer is 5. I don't know what you're guessing. I don't know what you're wondering about. We'll take our UFO machine one more time and exit the Under. It is now time to head back to Rollin Tower. I think now is a good place to stop. So next time on Pokemon Colosseum, we are actually going to go back to the top of Rollin Tower to correct a mistake I have made previously. So until then, I will see you later.